All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you guys make your way in, welcome on board to Truth Will Set You Free, episode number 12. We have another discussion on different viewpoints and current events. We've got some stuff today. We have a registered respiratory therapist to talk a little bit about her experience with COVID, as well as opinions on protesting. So we should have Cash on in a minute or two. He's having some internet issues. Teaching him how to restart his cable box right now. If you hear the clicking, that is my phone. Again, go ahead and share this video out. We are going to cover a lot of different topics, including COVID. We are going to talk about the video with the quote-unquote frontline doctors. We're going to talk hydroxychloroquine. We're going to talk about protests, the severity behind them, as well as a little bit of talk maybe about Major League Baseball as well. There's a lot of different topics to cover today. I want to make sure we get to as much as humanly possible. So go ahead and jump on, share this video.
Oh, yeah.
Share it out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's our startup music is Curtis jumping on going, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
that was just weird. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Hey, hello, everybody. Hey, Kelly.
I think Kelly was supposed to be by the pool. All right, we're going to start in 1 minute. Less than 1 minute. I like that I get updates from some of our viewers on where they're at any given moment.
I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all, sending love from Savannah. What's up, Jennifer? I love Savannah. I love me some, what is that other place? Tybee Island. That's the spot.
Now you're talking about that fancy stuff. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Nah, come on, man.
All right, 30 seconds. Keep sharing
Kelly
it out.
makes me laugh. Jennifer, Melanie, what up? Brittany, Nikki. Oh, we're gentlemen. I love it.
Debatable on a lot of different levels.
Hey, man.
All right, 30 seconds till showtime, everybody. Share it out. Share it out. Hopefully we'll be able to get Cash on shortly.
Kristen, what up? Paula, Wendy. Oh, right, Angela? It's amazing. What's up, Cookie? Arizona. Ooh. I like Arizona, Anthony. I always had a good time.
Yep. All right, I'm looking at one last thing before we get started. I've got a couple computers pulled up, a couple stories. We're at about 65 viewers, and then we will get started in about 10 seconds. That is not what I was looking for on this.
Rhode Island. I've been there twice. Isn't it where Family Guy is?
Something like that. I don't know. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and pull this down. All right.
It's freaking hot here.
It's hot everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Anthony Michael Russo from #BetheChange. Thank you guys very much for joining us on this episode of Truth Will Set You Free. Please continue to share this page out. We are going to have some interesting topics today that I know a lot of you have been posting about lately, including hydroxychloroquine. We're going to talk about the protests. We're going to talk about the videos being pulled from hydroxychloroquine. And since we're talking about that, I want to make sure I use the words, this is our opinions only based on the evidence and research that we have done as a group. And we do have some specialists on the show as well. Misty and I started talking regarding the protests because she is a frontline worker. She's a registered respiratory therapist, and she's going to talk about her experience and the importance we really have to drop this off the table. I have some very set opinions that can be changed as we listen, and Missy and I have had some really great talks about that as well. Curtis is the other guest host we have. Aaron is out today, unfortunately. Cash is trying to work on his internet. But in the meantime, I'm going to introduce you to the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Curtis Harkness.
Can you hear me? There we go. Yep. Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Had a great weekend, Anthony. Was on another panel for injustice and also just all things dealing with race. It was a more of a closed panel, but it was actually very diverse, and it was very good to hear what's going on and what other people are thinking about. There's a lot of times, we're up here talking and we see our amazing people in the comments, but it's always great to be in a more intimate panel and see what other people are thinking. So it was great. I got challenged a little bit, which was nice. And got stuck on a few things, which, we're up here all the time talking, and I'm just like, man, yeah, we're killing it. Boom, boom, boom. Facts, facts, facts. But sometimes, man, they'll get you, and it's just like, what about this? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be wise and not say anything and go research it, and then I'll come back for the next panel when they have it. So
wait, did you just say you would take a beat and go research it instead of just talk out of your ass? Okay,
I don't do that, because it's coming out of my mouth. You know what I'm saying?
Before we get into all of our topics of the show a little bit further, Curtis, I know you've got some stuff to say.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things I will say really quickly that I did notice from the panel that I was on, it was something that was really cool to see, and it challenged me in a way of seeing, one of the questions was talking about love, and it was, a lot of people that were Christian, some weren't. There was LGBTQ, all the different mixes. It was actually really good. And it was something that was challenging. It was talking about love, and it was talking about some people, being on different sides of abortion and other things. But at the same time, touching on American rights and values. And one of the biggest things was just like, and I always say, you make your own choice, and this is America. We're free to make our own choice. We're free to, again, like, what we say, hopefully that we still, continue to fight for our right to have freedom of speech, until we reach a point where I think you don't want a speech that hurts people. But one of the things was challenges, talking about what is love, what is unity. And I was like, oh, I know what unity, with Unite, Don't Fight, with Cash, with Be the Change, Regular Hero, Gratitude Tour. A lot of the things we're touching on was just, are we really, 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 really doing what love is about, and from the Christian aspect of it, we always like, oh, God is love, and be like Jesus, or whatever. If you're a Christian, if you're not, again, this is just my views. It was just something that I'm like, are we? Sometimes we get into this, we think what's best for other people, and we throw around a lot of Bible verses, but a lot of times Jesus was just like, take the, turn the other cheek, love your neighbor, and then it was like, who's your neighbor? And it was just something that was like, okay, I have to really take a seat and look back. Am I practicing what I'm preaching? And am I jumping to conclusions still when I'm saying that I'm researching? And that was something I had to take a beat and say, okay, let me really look back and look at my own self. And this is not for anybody else, but this is more for me, just to really look at it. So that was something that was very interesting in that one. Is the challenge, which was really good. And it didn't get nasty at all. There was definitely people from both sides of the aisle, definitely people from both different religions, different lifestyles. But like on our show, it was really cool to see people not go after each other, and they caught themselves. And that was really nice.
Yeah. And then, of course, this week we did lose a big member of...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Representative John Lewis, crazy thing, like 6 months ago, I flew in Atlanta airport, and they have a beautiful area in the Atlanta airport for Representative John Lewis. And he was a powerful figure. I know that not everybody agrees with him because, he's a Democrat, but also if you just look at him, who he was, when you talk about fighting for social justice, you talk about protesting and water hoses and cannons and dogs and all that. Like, this man was there. This man was in the beginning, and he was there with Dr. King. He was the youngest person to speak at that rally in Washington, which is again powerful to see these types of people come. And it was just something that was watching that caught my attention. I was watching a story, and a lot of people, once I mention this story, you're going to think that, I see where he's going to jump to, but I was watching the story. I read a story talking about a Alabama congressman on the same day that they brought Representative Lewis's body into Alabama to recognize him. It was him almost dying when he was younger in Alabama, when he was actually protesting and protesting. Let me take that out of there. And the congressman went to a birthday celebration for a Confederate general, which, again, to each his own, but that Confederate general was the first Grand Wizard of the KKK. And so, it was kind of weird because a lot of people, of course, are going to jump in, call him out, this and that. And one of his things that he said was, I didn't, realize that, again, that, Representative's body was coming there, which, definitely couldn't have not. But also he said, I didn't realize the correlation with the KKK and First Grand Wizard with this Confederate general, and then try to flip it and talk about cancel culture. And one thing I look at on both sides, which I'm tired of, is people saying they don't know. When you're an elected official, only if you're a Democrat or Republican, I don't like to hear that, I didn't know that the BLM Corporation did this, right? Does this, or, again, not the movement, but the corporation. Or I didn't know that this person did what. And that's just something I don't like. Like if you're an elected official, right? If you're a person of prominence, do your research. It's on the internet. Like literally, you could easily search it. So that's my gripe is if we're out there and you're just do your research on things so you don't have to get caught. And you can say, I knew it. I was just celebrating the other aspect of it. And, of course, I'm going to pay my respects. I just don't have time for both sides, again, are doing this. I didn't know. I didn't know. Like, come on, it's the internet. Everything's on the internet, and you can easily Google and know. Yeah, so that's my grind my gears. What was that? Again, that was another Family Guy reference.
So I want to send obviously respect. Yeah, Colleen's saying it. I keep trying to tell you. I was doing like little milking gestures. Move the mic just a little further away from your mouth. It sounds like you're swallowing something tiny.
Don't even say that.
Yeah. Okay. I'll move away. All right. So anyways.
Sorry, guys. This is my gaming headset. I'm a gamer too.
Yeah, God, you're a dork. Okay, so here's what we got. Still trying to work with Cash on getting his internet back up and running, but we're going to go ahead and get the show started. In respects to Representative Lewis, and like you said, what's interesting, he wasn't the world's best politician, but he was somebody that got in his place because of the actions he took his whole life, because he stood up for things, because he stood against oppression, he stood up for beatings, he stood up for all these different things, and he wasn't great at politicking. That wasn't his skill set, but he managed to make it at a high level because of him being able to lead with his actions. So
with his actions,
with respect to that, okay, excellent. So here's how we're going to start this episode. We are going to talk first about the Portland protests. I have desperately, I'm going to have a little moment right now. I have desperately,
your moment now. Get it.
Desperately I've gone to Occupy Democrats. I've gone to different groups that are involved with Portland. I've directly messaged on Facebook people that have been attending the protests. And actually I've done it both sides because I want a well-rounded view. It's very difficult to get somebody that's willing to speak because it's very hard on either side to stand behind what you're talking about. And Portland, I started doing research. I started looking things up. I showed articles from Snopes and LA Times, which are typically left-leaning, or they're left-leaning stories. And I was told, well, no, those aren't overly accurate. Snopes, when people keep talking about the issues regarding people being kidnapped, if Snopes is saying that it's a mixture of truth and false, it's really not happening the way that we're saying it. I've seen some videos. People are getting taken in military outfits into cars. Everybody has been accounted for that has been taken. They have been replaced. Not that that's okay, but I do have some philosophies behind it because I've talked to some people regarding some of the politics and Chinese ownership in places like Oregon and Washington. And I will get into that. But first, the reason why this all started and why we have a specialist on the show, respiratory therapist, is because we ended up having a side discussion when we were watching a live feed of the Portland protests. Because right now, in my opinion, if we still had Obama in office, he would be able to say words like, hey, guys, we have to stop protesting right now. We have a mass pandemic. Unfortunately, Trump can't make that decision. He can't say that because in an election year, that will cause him to look like an even bigger racist than people say he is. So ultimately, right now, we've got 15,000 people on the streets of Portland. We've got moms against the federal government. We've got veterans standing up for the people that are protesting. And right now, the message is muddied. So I want to bring up Misty. Misty first. I want to play a video of her really quick that I have on here of how she became viral. She's got about 500,000 views on something talking about the severity of COVID. And we go back and forth talking about, is it as serious as we say? Is there numbers that are inflated? How it actually affects people? We're going to talk about the remdesivir and hydroxychloroquine. But right now, I want to play her video real quick because she did a fantastic job telling people back a few months ago to do what you're told and stay inside. Like, let's be smart about this. And protests don't really fall into that category anymore. So here we go. Let's hope that this works like it sometimes does on my computer. Hashtag MacLife.
I got to work tonight, and I had to work very hard and suction out this nasty goober out of a patient's lungs. And it's just a tiny bit of the entire lung that is being affected, with this big goober that blocked off the entire tube. So you want to go spread this virus everywhere. That's actually not a respiratory virus, we have found. It's a virus that is affecting the vessels, and it's causing the endothelium to slough off. So there's a bunch of dead cells that are blocking up your arteries, which hold your blood, which your body has to pump to work. And we have people who are dying of blood clots for unexplained reasons because of this virus. But you want to go out and go shopping in the garden section at Home Depot and Walmart because you think that your freedoms and rights are being infringed upon. I'm a Trump supporter, but I'm on the Democratic side when it comes to the attitude about this virus because I'm the one saving the damn lives. But the goober that I sucked out, I'm going to turn the camera around and show you.
Oh, gosh.
Oh,
gosh.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, that's not real.
Okay, good.
Okay, these go to the lungs. The goober I sucked out was in the shape of these little bronchioles. Do you see those? All those goobers. There are millions of these terminals and branches in your lungs, okay? If you look over here.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause that because I'm just going to do something Curtis isn't going to want, and we're going to bring up Misty. But if you want to see it, you now know what the tubes look like, and you want to see what these people are passing, boom.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, yeah, it's not pleasant.
Curtis. Don't even do that.
Okay. No. All right. So, again, and Kelly on the side had a great point. You can actually think that numbers are overinflated and also think that it's not as severe. I'm sorry, you could think the numbers are overinflated and also still think it's a severe illness. So without further ado, registered respiratory therapist, we've got Misty. Misty.
I just saw it on my replay. I got the Facebook going right now.
Oh, did you see it? My goober.
Oh gosh, hold on. I gotta block my other side of the screen.
That's usually the response from the nursing staff. It's respiratory, get in here and take care of this. But yeah, that's probably the most famous mucus plug. I think it's gotten the most attention ever.
So Missy, I see you got a lot of your friends are watching and followers as well. Tell us a little bit about your background and where you work out of. I know you have a couple weeks off right now, but go ahead and tell us your experience in the medical field.
Well, I started respiratory in 2009. I actually started off doing heating and cooling fresh out of college, so it actually helped out with the respiratory trade, believe it or not. But I started doing it when my daughter became sick with breathing troubles because I just learned so much about it. And then I've been doing critical care. I started my career in Flint, Michigan during the homicide capital phase. Learned pretty much everything I know there. Wonderful staff in Flint, and I've pretty much been all over the central to lower Michigan. And then I got married, moved out to Texas. So now I'm living in El Paso. So that's where I was working right up until COVID. And here in El Paso, when I left at the end of March, we didn't have but like 8 ICU beds at my hospital taken up. Now we have 8 available beds in the entire county. So we didn't have a COVID problem here, and now we do. I did a video my first day there detailing what I was seeing and stuff, and I had shared it in our Nextdoor app, and a lot of people responded to that video. And then when I did this one, I don't know how it became so popular, but
hey, goobers get traction.
They do.
Oh my gosh.
What is the definition of a registered respiratory therapist?
Well, we are advanced practice respiratory therapists, so we deal more with mechanical ventilation. There are a certified therapist. They do more of the floor therapies, the long-term care facilities. Advanced practice, we deal more with the mechanical ventilation portion.
Got it. So what you've seen, and we talked a little bit about the numbers, even in the beginning it was like the Wild West, and you and I talked, we're learning as we go. And in terms of the way people view the numbers, what exactly were you noticing in the very beginning when you guys didn't have enough tests to test people as they came in?
They're just in El Paso. It was hard because we had to turn people down for testing who really fit the bill for testing. But what people didn't understand in the beginning is that not every hospital was an authorized testing center. Once I left and got out of our area to areas that were harder hit, testing wasn't a problem. It was really easy to come by. It was the amount of patients that we were losing that was really hard for all of us to process. I mean, when you go to work, you expect to do your rounds and you check on your ventilators. I don't expect to get, have 6 patients and half of them gone by noon and getting a whole new batch that are waiting in the emergency room. So it really all depended early on with the testing as in what area you were in, because we had to divert what resources we had to the areas where it was harder hit, obviously. Now you can get tested pretty much anywhere. But in the very beginning, it was very hard to come by, and it was really frustrating.
Got it. And so the reason why you and I started talking, and I was almost protecting you on a post, and then you were, and I don't even know if I just gave you a shout out. I followed up and I said something because I'm watching these Portland protests that are happening after midnight with the crowds growing and growing. And I'm like, this is the whole process to me is Black Lives Matter. And I fully believe that there is a need for the movement of Black Lives Matter. I think we're at a tipping point in our society where we are finally realizing and finding ways of properly atoning for the history of America and finding a way to recognize that. Now, with that said, we're trying to think of what to do now, what to be current with. And we need to people talk about getting kids back to school and they go, well, yeah, we don't want to get them hurt. But if you're looking at Black Lives Mattering, we look at the socioeconomic injustices that have been done over decades, done over centuries, but specifically over the last several decades. And if we want to directly help them, we need to get them back to school. That gets them fed. That gets them educated when they're already behind in systems. We had a teacher last week that's in an underprivileged school district, and we've been talking about why it's important to get kids back to school instead of parents just pushing them off. So you look at these protests, and why do they bother you? Why did they bother you so much, Misty?
A lot of the protests that I was referring to in the very beginning, I'm a Michigander. I grew up in Michigan, and we have the most notable Michigan militia. And they seem to only come out when it benefits them in some way. And they were on the Capitol steps protesting a governor of Michigan for shutting down, but they were protesting their Second Amendment rights. And I'm like standing here in the middle of all this death going, this is a virus. This has nothing to do with politics and Second Amendment issues. And they had shut down the garden section at Home Depot and Walmart because it wasn't essential, and people were just losing it. And they were so hateful to each other. When it made it to Fox News, I was reading the comments when I sat down and I did that video. I was in the conference room on my lunch break, and everybody's like, why aren't you wearing a mask? Well, we're allowed to take it off and eat and stuff, But I just got so fed up with it. And, they were hanging the governor's, they had a noose with a Barbie doll hanging from it, like trying to hang Governor Whitmer. And I'm like, wow, where is all this hate coming from? We're just trying to protect the state and its resources, and all the people in it. And I had just spent 6 hours sweating my butt off in multiple layers of PPE, trying to save lives. And I'm reading about this hoax and these protests. And I'm like, if anything, I thought when this virus happened that unity would happen, that we would come together as a nation and we would, take care of one another like we did here in El Paso after the Walmart shootings. And I was like, we had just come out of that here in El Paso, and, we had this feeling, and I'm like, okay, great. Hopefully this will spread across the United States. No, that's not what happened.
Well, we started throwing things at it. We had the COVID, then we've got the misinformation of numbers, and then the media was able to manipulate everything into an argument, and then George Floyd happened. Then there was murder hornets. Then there was rabid rats in New York City.
Hey, them hornets are legit, bro. I saw that on National Geographic. I will do anything I can to make sure things don't come here, dog. Straight up, bro. Sorry. Anyway, go ahead.
And I honestly think when the George Floyd thing happened, I mean, yes, it was murder. I mean, I don't think there's a single person who's watched that video that will say otherwise, you know,
right.
But I really think that the emotional reaction that we got from people was built up over the months from being in lockdown at home with COVID. And it's just like with a PTSD, they're battling this invisible enemy. We're doing the same thing with this virus, and people don't know how to react to something that they can't see. It's not tangible. So I do understand the conspiracy theories, the hoaxes, because when we have all these things going on, that's what the human mind does, you know, and we have to be able to feed it the proper information to make logical decisions. But we have nothing but emotional reactions going on right now from people. And it's like, hey, now's the time that we really need to use that logic. You know, let's sit down, let's do some critical thinking and figure out how to get through this, because other countries are doing it. Why can't we?
Yeah. And I think we're forgetting where we were a little bit right before George Floyd. We were all like all the commercials on TV. We were talking about coming together apart. Honestly, we've almost forgot about that. But if you're looking at May, taking race completely out of it, people were connecting with their friends on Zoom. They were missing that human interaction. And there was something very interesting and almost beautiful happening until we got hit in the head with these riots and protests and all these different things, which it's First Amendment rights. But now, talking about what you and I started talking about, Misty, we ignore the aspect because it's outdoors and they're fine. They for the most part wear their masks. You are on the front lines. You deal with the respiratory. You deal with the end user. You deal with the people that are the sickest of the sick. Real talk. People can get COVID very easily, yes or no, from protesting.
That's a good question. And right now we're trying to figure that out because we're not sure and because of the way that the media has portrayed it, and I've seen it all. Oh, we can go to a Trump rally and not get COVID, but all that stuff. But the age groups that we are seeing right now in the hospital are not the over the age of 65. It is the younger bar crowd age. So is it attributed to the bar being open, or can we attribute it to the protest, or maybe a little bit of both? I think logic would say probably a little bit of both, because these are the age groups that are also out in the streets protesting. So
yeah, they're doing both.
Yeah, they're doing both. From what I can tell with the protests, the ones who are wearing the masks are the ones who were doing the rioting and looting and didn't want to be caught. The ones who are, I'm like, that's one way to get everybody to wear their masks. Let's just have mass riots. And that's just, everybody take whatever you want.
Oh,
Target's
man.
Okay with it. But, it's so frustrating because I see I already deal with so much death and a lot of end of life care that I hear people that are like, okay, these are my regrets. I really wish I would have done these things. And I do try to pass those on and make changes in my own life so I don't have those same regrets, especially at the age of like 60, 65. That's still pretty young. But these younger kids are like, and I call them kids because I'm 41 and they're in their 20s. So very well could be my kid. But they're like, man, I really wish I would have just put that mask on, and to hear these regrets. And if you get put on that ventilator, it's pretty much a death sentence. There really aren't any good outcomes with the ventilator.
Somebody had that question in the side. So
I actually answered it. The percentages back when we looked at it, I have my COVID notebook over here, probably mid-May, end of May. If you were over the age of 65, there was like a 5% chance of survival on the ventilator. If you were under the age of 65, it's about a 25% chance of survival. So it's not good. We are trying at all costs to avoid ventilation. I have talked to some counterparts who've been working the front lines with me since all this happened. One's at a hospital out in Phoenix, and they are going above and beyond to get people off the ventilator. They're being very aggressive about it. That's what I want to hear, because the longer we keep you on that vent, the more damage we're going to do. They're using a whole different idea with ventilator management now. It used to be intubate everybody early and use high pressures, and we're not doing that anymore. So we're doing all these other things now to help keep the lungs in whatever condition we can that's healthy, because they take a huge hit on this. We are having people, what's happening with our vent patients after they get off the ventilator is what's called a pulmonary fibrosis. But what we're seeing is that's also happening in patients who've been diagnosed who have not been on the ventilator. So, you know, when you have stiff lungs like that, the best way I can explain that lung tissue is like trying to breathe through like a burn scar. You know how it gets like real thick and gnarly? Well, that's what happens inside the lungs. So they get real thick, real gnarly. They can't pass oxygen. And the only to fix that is a lung transplant. So, you know, we just don't have that availability.
And you and I also talked, and you mentioned it in your video, a lot of people think this is a lung disorder and it's more vascular. So that's a common misconception. And I know Patrick Wicker is watching. Him and I had this talk a while ago. So Curtis, do you want to say something about it before Missy?
I think I did announce that last week.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about this for a while, but yeah, Missy brought that up in a video, that video from a couple months ago. So Missy, go ahead and talk about with the misconception.
A lot of people think that because this gets in through the lungs, that this is a respiratory virus, and that's how it's like the flu. Because a lot of people, you know, throughout this whole thing, this is just like the flu. Nothing that we are seeing with this is similar with the flu. Not the pneumonia that develops, not the lung stiffening, none of it. And what's happening is that virus is binding to the ACE2 receptor when it gets into the body, which is all over the lungs. So it's a vehicle into the body, but once it gets in there and it begins to replicate, you have those ACE2 receptors in multiple organs. You know, you have them in your lungs, you got them in the heart, you got them in the kidneys, you got them in the liver. So what they're finding is all these microemboli are happening when they're doing the autopsies of these patients, and it's inflaming the endothelium of all these tiny little blood vessels, and they're tiny. I mean, it's not the large arteries that we're seeing. This is happening actually in the veins. They call them the pulmonary arteries, but in fact they are veins. So they're finding these huge clots, casts, you know, in all these people. And what they're seeing is a difference in the symptoms, possibly depending on where these clots are forming. But this is all happening with clots. It's affecting the blood. The lungs are just a vehicle into the body.
Got it. Curtis, before I go more into the riots with Portland, and then I know there's a lot of people asking about, because they probably saw my post yesterday about hydroxychloroquine. We will get into that. That's Missy's little one back there. You guys can wave.
Yes, he's writing me love notes right now, asking me for things because he knows I'm on the video.
Actually, Patrick,
my friend's house to play Minecraft?
No, you cannot take my brand new gaming laptop to your friend's house to play Minecraft, but you can take that cell phone.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
My $1,500 gaming laptop. Okay.
Yeah.
See, Anthony Gaming. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I got a razor, so we're good.
So people are talking about CDC, and also, have you guys been using blood thinners, anticoagulants to treat?
Yep, I'm there. Yes, we have been. When I was in New Jersey, almost every patient was on some kind of heparin drip. We are giving the, anticoagulation, but
my phone.
It's I don't.
We've got a
Hey,
hey,
life, baby, real life, real life. That's my name.
One of these days you'll be 21 like my oldest, and I'm gonna I'm just trying to enjoy the moment. But up in New Jersey, everybody was getting blood thinners, and but here when I was in Texas, we didn't have anybody on them. They were on the regular, a prophylaxis, but not like a heparin drip. But their blood was nowhere near as thick as it was as my patients up in New Jersey. So I don't know what the difference with it is, but despite whether they're on full anticoagulation or a partial or none, they're still seeing these clots. And what they're finding is that these clots are pretty much happening immediately. So as soon as you start coming down with this virus, all these things begin to happen. And by the time you wind up feeling these symptoms, you're already so far into this that, taking something like hydroxychloroquine, like we were talking in these, lesser symptom patients, by the time that you're starting to feel the symptoms, you're already pretty far into this. And it's a little late in the game anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's another perspective to look at this, because what they're finding is that these clots are forming in place. They're not breaking off and traveling from other places. They're beginning to form immediately. And people are coming in with elevated heart markers, which is indicative of a heart attack. We take them to the cath lab. Everything is clear, because the clot's happening in a vein, not the artery like we see in the cath lab. So all these are building up in the small vasculature along with the larger ones, like with the pulmonary artery. And just depending on where that clot forms, you can have a stroke, you can have a pulmonary embolism. You can, some people are finding parts of the kidney are becoming necrotic, intestinal, because those ACE2 receptors are all throughout your intestines. That's why we're seeing symptoms outside of just lung symptoms.
That makes sense. A couple good questions on the side is, do you think the difference you're seeing in New Jersey and Texas, could that be a different strain of any kind? I mean,
I'm wondering that myself. I haven't had a chance to look too much into it, because all the research I wanted to do and the notes I've been taking and the questions that I have, I began to have so much going on with so much research. I have not got to look into it farther to the point where, I would like to, but I don't know, because a population was largely the same, African American and Hispanic folks. I don't think I've had one white patient since I've been doing this. It's been African American and Hispanics, and same group down here. I don't think the heat really comes into play, but it's a very interesting observation, especially with them being on a lot of blood thinners up there. And I couldn't even draw their blood to the point where it would flow. Never had a problem in Texas over in Laredo. Not at all.
So question for you, and people are asking this, and I think this is going to start lending more into the hydroxychloroquine, which I don't want to get to just yet. But first, people are asking about, and you and I talked a little bit about it as well, proper nutrition, vitamin D, sunshine, et cetera, exercise, rest, reducing stress. Is there anything that you guys are telling people that you're seeing all of your patients not be a part of before they get to that level of sickness with some good preventative care? Anything?
Definitely, you want to eat your fruits and vegetables. They're full of antioxidants. Vitamin D is never harmful. There's really been some good studies with the benefit of vitamin D. So take your daily vitamin, eat a healthy diet. Obviously don't load up on sugars. But lots of fruits and vegetables. That's where your antioxidants are. That's one of the most important things. That's the best thing that we can recommend. Stay healthy. Wash your hands. Really. I mean, I honestly can't believe most of the hospital acquired infections that happen in a hospital are from healthcare workers not washing their hands.
Yeah.
So we see outbreaks like that, and it's like, if we're not doing it right, and we are lectured this every day at work, there's signs everywhere, there's antibacterial sanitizer everywhere. Wash your hands, make sure you're doing it right and do it well.
How do you feel? How do you feel about early on, or when you start feeling under the weather? Maybe your first fever, you don't know if you have COVID yet, and you're talking about blood thinning. What's your opinion on aspirin and Mucinex?
There is no data that shows prophylactic baby aspirin to be of any help. You don't want to start anything like that with obviously not talking to your own personal physician, because it is a blood thinner. They can interact with other medications. Mucinex isn't such a bad idea. I don't start seeing the mucus and clots with this, though, until long after we have been infected or we put you on the ventilator and that cytokine storm starts. Once that cytokine storm starts, it begins to produce excess mucus, and that's where these plugs begin to come from. But in the beginning of this, it's a dry, hacky cough. So it's inflammation. It's not mucus that's in there causing this. So I wouldn't say Mucinex right off the bat, but definitely stay hydrated. You need the fluid to help move any mucus that's in there. Plus your body needs it to function properly. But I wouldn't say running right to all that stuff would be the best thing. Even a low fever is not such a bad thing. You don't want to suppress that fever, because that's your body's immune system working. What you're doing by running to a fever reducer right away is impairing your body's ability to fight something. So you definitely don't want to just be dumping that down your gullet trying to tame a fever. Now, if it's up there high, obviously, yes, take it down, but if it's just a low grade fever, let it go, let your body do its thing.
Got it. Curtis, you got any questions on that chain of thought?
Well, yeah, I mean, I heard about a cytokine blast. I've been really looking into the different therapies they have, to prepare your body to be healthy, but also like during it. Just a quick question, like if you had something that could up your white blood cells, right, in a natural way, to potentially, because the cytokine blast, and correct me if I'm wrong, is when your body overproduces when it's too late. If there's a way to, like, say for the elderly, to kind of supercharge them, so if they do get it, it's not like a cytokine blast because they already have enough white blood cells to at least start to produce the antibodies, or is that something that only a potential vaccine could do? Which vaccines are meant to help your body create the antibodies?
Yeah, there's a lot of good questions there. There really isn't anything that you can do to like supercharge it. The goal with all of that is to prevent the huge storm from ever happening. Because what happens when that storm starts is your mast cells rupture and it releases a ton of things. Histamine's one of them. There's a ton of things that happen. So to not have that happen would be the ultimate goal, which is the way we do it in asthmatics. Things like a singular. And we've been giving that. That's another thing. So we've been giving medications that usually help with these things. They're also using like anti-cancer medications. So they are trying these things. Like I said, there is a ton of medications in investigational studies where we're trying to see if there is a significance to helping to prevent this, helping to reduce it. It's just we're finding out new things every day. And every time we do, it's like, okay, it's a choose your own adventure novel. And it's like, okay, throw everything out the window that we know. This is what's happening now, and this is the way we need to go. So science takes a lot of time, and people don't have any patience these days. They want answers right now. The Moderna vaccine that they have released the information on, that's a pretty interesting vaccine because it works differently than any other vaccine. It's like a messenger vaccine to where it'll go into your bodies. And this is the lovely, conspiracy theory with this one, because it's a messenger RNA. It's to trigger your body to create the antibodies, but it's not injecting the antigen in. So you're not going to be injected with COVID-19 like you would with the flu vaccine. You get the inactive virus and then your body builds up an immunity to it. This one sends in a messenger to the cell, and it's not rewriting your DNA. It's just triggering the cell to produce the antibodies by a different method than injecting the antigen. So that's a novel vaccine. So this is all going to be very new.
Yeah, what?
Yeah.
So hold on. So then in that one again, everybody, this is all, we're getting information as it comes. We're not saying take a vaccine or not, right?
Exactly.
This is not
no.
None of that. But just saying, you said that, because I have not heard this, and I've been looking at it, and I did not know that apparently if they do that, then you're not actually going to get what normally vaccines would be, which is you get a weakened antigen.
Correct.
Oh wow. I'll have to look into that. I just want to know what's going on there.
And I know, and the vaccination thing on my end, when I look at that and I see a lot of people commenting on vaccines. I'll be honest, there's nothing that's going to have me take the specific COVID vaccine.
Me either. You're going to have to wait a good 5 years for research in numbers for me to inject anything in my body like that. I mean, I happily get my flu shot every year, but we've researched a lot of that, and I haven't gotten sick with the flu in 10 years of getting it, but I am not. I just got something through the Heroes Registry. Would you be a willing vaccine participant? No, I would not.
Yeah,
not happening.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah, we're not. We're actually just giving.
And if you are a flu vaccine person, you want to jump in, we don't judge you either. Thank you for your science dedication. All I say is definitely, think about what you're doing. That's all it is. I'm not saying do it or not. Just saying, think about and look at your health best you can as your life.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Choose it. Make the decisions based off what suits your lifestyle.
Right.
I don't want to push vaccines onto anybody. I have my own belief. I definitely won't be I am pro-vaccine, but I won't be getting one until it's been tested.
Got it. All right, so here's what we're going to do, because I want to make sure we have Curtis. And I know, Missy, I totally lied to you. I said 30 minutes, and now we've ended up turning this into a Q&A. Do you got a little bit more time for
I have plenty of time, always for COVID.
All right, so because you and I are going to have a very interesting discussion, and if Curtis has to go by that point, that's okay, because you and I have already had the hydroxychloroquine talk, and Quinn, and we are going to have it. We're going to have it out. We have, just so everybody knows, we have slightly different opinions on it. And it's a very interesting, different way to look at it. She's obviously very educated in it. I've done my research, and it's going to be two different ways of looking at it. So stay tuned for that. But right now, I want to show a video again, because now it's talking BLM and Portland, and we've talked about the protests. To me, you can't open. We have issues opening a beach, but then we say protests don't increase the numbers because they're outdoors. Riddle me that one. So here, and here's the thing: we're losing the message in Portland, and I really want Curtis to weigh in a little bit on this one. So I want to play this video really quick. Pray that it works. This is from Los Angeles Times. So a middle level. Why are you laughing at Los Angeles Times, Curtis?
No. I was laughing at hopefully the video works. The internet, you never know. The internet goes.
So this is from Los Angeles Times, a known centered or left-leaning to center magazine. So let's pray. All right, so there's that, and I think that's the bigger story at this point. I'm going to tell a little. I had a very interesting conversation with somebody regarding Portland. And what people don't realize about Oregon and Washington, and I am encouraging you all to do research on your own on this one, Oregon is very, very, very owned by the Chinese government. They have bought, and you can again do this research. Please do it on your own before you share anything that is said. There's a lot of companies out there that are bought and paid for or 30% owned. Mostly it's all under 50%, though it doesn't show. It's actually considered a sister city to just south of Taipei in China. Their gross domestic products are vast on what they send to China from Oregon. They've got trade deals that are huge. So if you look at political issues and the political motivation behind what's going on right now, you've got Governor Brown that is pulling out the police departments. They're not letting anything be guarded. Now, with that said, it's a very small portion of Portland. It's 2 to 3 blocks that is an issue that is making huge national news. Just like Seattle, Chop, Chaz, whatever, was small. But both of these states are very Chinese backed, is what we'll say. China has a huge political motivation to make sure Trump is out of office because he has been the strictest on tariffs, which is costing Oregon, for example, and again, please look this up. It cost them it was off of $87 billion worth of resources, and it cost them somewhere around $900 million in tax issues and ramifications as of 2019 with the new tariffs being put in place. So the point that you can't find on the internet is you try to put 2 and 2 together, and I will put my own spin on this, but you base it off of what's going on. You look at the fact that these the local leaders that have very severe ties financially and work-wise, there's pictures all over Brown's office apparently that have her trips to China. She's tied in with them. So and likely she should be. If 16% of your gross domestic product is going to China, that's crazy. And that's from a state. So with that said, to me, you pull out the you pull out your state police, you force Trump's hand to bring in the federal government, and you're now looking at what is a military state or martial law, which politically makes Trump look very bad. So all I look at it is people are questioning that's just in 3 blocks, Nicole. Yes, it's literally this size of Portland. It's so incredibly small, and now the numbers are growing. Black Lives Matter, as the corporation, is making sure that area is continued to have presence. But as Los Angeles Times showed, as well as a lot of other people, you can hear chanting at 2 a.m. You can hear a lot of black people saying, stop, get away, stop creating violence, stop bogarting this movement, stop making an issue to it. So, Curtis, what do you think of all this? You're on mute.
That's right. Got my gaming headphones on. Sorry.
We know.
Hey, don't be hating. Missy's got a gaming laptop too. I don't know if she games, but whatever.
No.
Oh, Missy, don't say nothing. Missy, don't say nothing.
I need the RAM.
They need a RAM in Portland.
This is not biscuits and gravy, Misty. I don't think she knows that joke. But I will say a couple things, right? I'm a black person. I hope you can see that, potentially, right?
Get out.
I didn't know it myself. But no. The thing I tell people is, as a black citizen, like I love that everybody's coming, together and recognizing that we need to make change in America. We do. There's no doubt about it. It's just what it is. But there's a point where it gets to where people start to tell black people what the changes should be when we should listen and work together. And one thing I did see in San Francisco, the mayor there, San Francisco Mayor London Breed, she was not happy about the white progressives trying to do exactly that. And kind of what you see in Portland. And again, I'm not in Portland. I don't know what's going on. 100%. I know what we see, and I know that we are seeing other stories come out, which is great. But I just see it, and I see more and more. And you see it as a black person. It's like, we want to, they say, quote unquote, defund the police, but we want to reinvest the money to make it where you don't have to put the police in dangerous situations. And then we have a better position in the community to make it better so that the police and the community can work together like it should be. And people start yelling, defund the police, shut it all down. And you start to see that trending topic it's not Black people as much anymore. It's not the actual movement that people were protesting earlier. And now we're like, all right, great. Let's work on our communities for change. And so that's something that I see as a Black person, and is seeing other cities that are progressive, especially San Francisco, which really is progressive, we know. Even their own mayor was like, hold on, no, like we need to get it back on focus, back on track, right? I think a big proponent of what Black Lives Matter should be also nutrition and health, access to healthy food, because the reason we see Black people getting affected by COVID, not because COVID is like, oh, you Black person, let me lock to you and get you. No, it's the health behind it. And what people don't realize, the foods that Black people eat weren't naturally what Black people, when they came over, were eating. It's what they were forced to eat as slaves, and it was what was left over. And so those foods are high caloric, they cause high blood pressure. That's not natural for Black people to have high blood pressure. No, it's based on the years and years of food that was given and the continued lack of access to healthy nutrition. So with this thing with Portland and San Francisco and some of these other places have a lot of progressives that are white, the message is getting lost. And I'm like, please refocus the message. Let's refocus it. Now let's go and do something about it to make sure we're actually moving forward and not backwards. And that's something that I see people, as a Black person, I don't like that's happening. I do like that people are coming together of different colors and creed and races and saying we need to stand together and help making sure that Black lives do matter, 100%. But at that time, we also need to make sure that we are not trying to do more than what was needed and tell people what to do, kind of like mansplaining, that some women say. And I've seen some of it happen in life, but it's just like, yeah, we should let people who are looking to change, help them lead, and we be right behind them and support, like you do, and others doing different things. So with the Portland, I don't fully agree with it. And the sucky part is my brother's out in LA, and he was protesting early, masks and everybody's got it on, and they were fighting people to stop trying to incite violence, and he got shot with a rubber bullet. And I think I said this before, right? Tore his back up, but was able to get the people back and say, hey, we're not fighting police. We're trying to stop these people from looting. And that's something that when my brother's out there and others are out there trying to really do the right thing, and you now have to fight people that aren't going against you but trying to do more, that's when it's a problem. And I don't like the violence like that. There's no point.
We've changed white-splaining. White-splaining used to mean something different. Now we've got liberal white-splaining, which is like, no, Black people, this is how we stand up for you. And it's creating...
Well, I mean, but that goes across the board, right? There's white people saying, no, Black people, this is not injustice. Right. This is injustice. And then you get the other side that's like, no, Black people, we should not just be, trying to put money back in and help the community. Right. We should defund everything. Everybody should. Universal health care and all, or no health care. It's like, I'm like, get it under your understanding. Like, we need to get it back centered. Let's make some real choices.
And Missy, I saw you type in a few things, so I'm going to say one thing at the end of it. But go ahead. What's your? I mean, again,
honestly, that's kind of the way I feel. Most of my friends are Black. I grew up in the Metro Detroit area. I tend to hang out with the D.
I lived there. I was born in Ohio. And we moved to Detroit.
The people to the south. That's how we talk about the O word. But most of my Black friends are like, white people, sit your asses down. This is not your fight. You don't really understand. And when I look at a lot of these protests, I'm looking for, it's like one of the comments was, it's like a Where's Waldo, find a Black face. And it's the truth. It's like, why are all these people white and why are they carrying skateboards? Like, I first noticed these protests and these riotings. I'm like, who's the dudes with the skateboards? I'm like, I know a lot of Black folks and they don't generally ride around on skateboards.
Right.
Some, there's that crowd, but not like that. That's not the preferred method of transportation of a Black man. I just know these things. And so, when this all started in the very beginning, I was already skeptical. I was watching this going, wait a second, number one, all these people joining in with the Black Lives Matter movement, when it comes time to put, then all these companies with Nike and Target, like okaying the rioting and looting and standing up for no, that's not what you really should have done. The rioting and looting was not okay. All that rioting and looting overshadowed the people who were actually there trying to make a statement peacefully and do something to bring about awareness. None of this rioting and I'm sitting here thinking, I lived through, I was watching the LA riots in high school. This is like really reminiscent. I didn't think I was going to have to watch this again, but and then it just like escalated more, and I'm like, dear God, why are we even letting this happen? And now, look at Oregon. It's like, well, I'm glad
it's a lot of hypocrisy is also an interesting thing to look at it, because we talk about Antifa. 3 weeks ago, you see a lot of the Black BLM corporation side and media saying Antifa is a made up thing. And then now that the things are getting out of hand in Oregon, they're going, those are just the Antifa people.
Yeah.
You just said they didn't exist 3 weeks ago. That's not how this works. And to me, that's an incredibly frustrating way to not take self-responsibility in the moment and realize that certain things are being bogarted and being led astray from the actual message.
It's like, how long can we protest for before we start to make changes? We have made our shout. Now what's next?
Yeah.
Are we going to sit down and just let them, it's the same thing in healthcare. We're trying to speak up and we're trying to promote change. Are we going to sit down and let them just go back to doing what they've been doing? Or are we going to make changes?
Right.
Yeah.
And
go ahead, Curtis.
No, Missy was finishing. She was saying something.
No, it's just a lot easier for people to be social media armchair warriors than it is to get out
I like
and
that.
Put their money where their mouth is. It's like they're so afraid of the negative response, but it's just like with my rant video, I was expecting, that got over 500,000 views. I had 3 negative messages out of all the messages I received from that video. So it's like, let's not be afraid of what might happen. And let's see what could happen. You know what I mean? Let's start looking at the positive things, and you can shut off the negative. It's like, just don't look at it. Focus on what you can change.
Yeah.
And I don't know why people find it so much easier to sit down and ridicule somebody than it is to try to promote something positive. It's like, what happened to all the positive, happy people?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're there. I will say really quickly, with what you said, Missy, which is 100% what I said for everybody, right? People are like, they don't need to protest, or they need to protest, or whatever. I agree. I said, great. Put your money where your mouth is. I want to see action, right? And I do see some action happening, right? Even in Asheville, North Carolina, which I ain't gonna lie, I did not expect to see that come from out of North Carolina. But Asheville, North Carolina worked on, and they have reparations. Now, reparations in the form of investment into the community, which is what's needed, right? If you invest in the community and help people get from poverty and have where they don't have to feel like they don't have anything to do crime, you don't need as many police. More people are going to make money. People around the community are going to make money. Value is going to increase, and the entire community is going to be even better from it. Instead of a stain, and you're like, oh, don't go to that part of town. Now you can say we can go to all the part of town. And that's the thing I don't like, is when people don't have true, clear action. And that's something I do believe. I do a lot of panels and I'm talking, and I talk to people all the time, and they're like, well, what do I do? I'm like, well, first of all, just look at your community. Figure out a way to help. And that's something like with the name of the gratitude tour we started. That's during COVID. We couldn't go out. I run a nonprofit. I'm not going out there and jumping around and volunteering everywhere. But no, find ways. We feed the nurses and doctors at the hospitals in Miami right now. We find ways to do what we can with what we have right now. Right. That's Regular Hero. That's Gratitude Tour. That's Be the Change. And that's Streetlights. And that's the thing that I tell people is, with this whole thing is find a way to make action, find a way to support. And the last thing I say, don't just donate somewhere. People that where can I donate to? That's donation is not going to make you feel better, fix the problem. That will help. You can donate Streetlights, definitely donate Regular Hero and Gratitude, but find ways to also impact your own community, and I think that's something that we all need to do.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll go ahead and leave it there. And final thoughts on Black Lives Matter, because I'm hearing a lot of people that are heavy supporters of the movement that are now going, oh God, I don't know what to do or say at this point. It's not great. There's the federal interaction in Portland. You've got people quote unquote being taken in cars. Then the Snopes is even again. There's a lot of confusion. But then I ask a question because it came up on somebody's wall right before we got on this. And this is the way the conversation went. And I know, Curtis, you're going to go right after this, but I want your feedback because this is, to me, makes it very difficult. Just for the record, for the people who think that the BLM is still a hate group, there are plenty of peaceful protests still going on every day with no media coverage. Saying BLM protests are all violence and rioting is just admitting how much of a sheep you are because you believe false narrative and had accepted quickly with no further education just to validate your own hateful traits. It is what it is. So I made a comment, and I just said the corporation has drastically undermined the movement, causing these ideologies to exist. So I wasn't taking away her statement. I was simply agreeing with it in a different way. So the response from her was, no, it hasn't. The message has been the same over all these years. I said, so the message has always been and still is anti-nuclear family, inciting violence, raising money for political parties, ? She said, hit up Google and learn to think for yourself. I said, that's not the message. Or somebody said she goes, that's not the message. I said, what is the message? Because I'm fully believing in Black Lives Matter, but that's not what I'm seeing. So the response goes, you have to do some research then, buddy. Either you've been completely detached from the world or you're just dense. This isn't kindergarten. I'm not going to hold your hand through it. I suggest opening your heart when you do, though, and see things with a different perspective, even if that makes you feel a way about yourself. Good luck to you. I said, I am. I'm open to hearing it. I'm looked everywhere. To me, it's a message bogarted. To which she then sent memes at that point. A meme of a crab playing a little violin. She said, you're dense, go figure. I said, that's a typical... I
love that meme. Sorry.
I know, it is good. I said, that's a typical answer when I asked to be taught something from someone with no willingness to teach. You prove my point. She said, you prove mine as well. And again, I just said, please just educate. I'm asking for education. And then she comes back with, why do you want to argue so bad? What stick is up your ass? Reread the comments and talk to yourself in a mirror. That's what you want to do. My responsibilities are the same. I'm literally asking for her to educate me in the most calm, nice way humanly possible.
I'm very surprised at that.
What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong with this conversation?
You should have slid into them DMs. No, I'm joking. No, I mean, you have to realize here sometimes, as much as people are, and I've seen this on both sides, as much as people are like, this is what I am, go look it up. I'm like, well, my dad was like that person that was like, Dad, what's this? Especially if it's an argument between me and my brother, go look it up. Now, I had to use a Encyclopedia Britannica, not Google, which is, of course, Dogpile and somebody that's older. But anyway, right. But getting to that point with this, my thing is, if I'm going to tell someone, right, if I make this comment, I'm going to put it on there and people are like, well, do this, do that. What's going on? Yada, yada, yada. I'm like, all right, well, this is my reasoning. I'll give you my reasoning. I like to talk, right? I don't like to talk according to your mom, but I will give my reasoning. And I post things on my stories all the time. I don't post all the time. I like to post stories because I know my idea can change and it's better I can then update my story. And you saw that this weekend, Anthony. And when people tell me, and it's like what you asked, Anthony, is like, well, what's going, what is it? I'm always like, okay, I try my best to tell that person. Now, I don't always have the time, and I might even say, hey, I'll come back to this. But at the end of the day, if you're going to make a comment and then come back in an argument, go look it up and bring me some back information. And that's what I don't think a lot of people want to do. And funny thing in school in Georgia State University, because it's a great university, number 2 in America for business. I had a great teacher at the end of my career in college, and I've never got a grade lower as I did in his class, which the curve was great. I did okay still, but it was one of the hardest classes I had to do because he forced you to think critically deeper than what was on the surface. And that meant you had to go do your own research, not just do the research. You had to come back with the right people like under it to back it up. And it was more of a master's class, even maybe a thesis that we had to do. And it was just something that I tell people that I realized right then and there, out of the 50 students or so more in that class, that it was a problem. And I really think it's gotten worse because people don't think critically and they don't really do the research.
Oh,
and
amen.
And they take and again they take marketing points, they take media, and they just spew it on both sides. Well, no, the defund the police is bad, or you're gonna everybody who likes this is all anti-police, so yada yada yada. And it's just like you have to really look at it and do your own research, but also look who you're getting your research from. And that's the problem, Anthony. I think with you coming in, not the problem with you, but with the person, whoever it was. I think they need to, really do their own research and then be able to come back to you in a positive way, in a calm way, like you did, which I'm very surprised. I'm joking. That
you know my style.
I know you're not you come in there because you got the information, and that's what they don't have, and that's the problem on their side. and they need to make sure they have that information. Also, I want to say something. Deirdre, I did not have a stroke. I'm all about words and what I say and what people say about me. I did not have a stroke. I rebuke that, and I have a good working brain. There we go. No, but yeah, and Anthony, for real though, like that. That's something that I think is a problem, that they didn't do their research, and they don't have anything. Honestly, I believe, my opinion, that they don't have anything to come back to you at. And they're like, no, this is what it is. And if you just say it's what it is, you don't have to say anything else, then there's nothing else. America's the greatest, or America's the worst.
The only thing they could come back, man, I like to research the other side, so I know the thing that they can come back to me with is, oh, you read that off of Fox News. Well, okay, so I did, but I also read it off these 37 other places. So if that's your comeback, and that goes the same way when people that are a lot of our fan group too, and they go, "Oh, you must have just heard that on CNN." That's not an actual reply. You need to have a counterpoint.
Because not every. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. Counterpoint. I was just going to say.
I was like, because not everything on CNN and Fox News is always wrong. There's a lot of good information that comes from both, and a lot of times what happens is I see them and it's the same information. I'm like, ooh, that's truth right there, because both can't lie too much because it's too simple to lie about, and then they go far in what they want to do, and all other stuff. CNN to start telling you other stuff. Fox to crop stuff out, which I will say, and this kind of leaves me. I know I gotta go. Dang it, I'm gonna have to go. Really quick. And you're Trump supporter too, Misty. Yeah. I don't support anybody because.
Whoa! Why'd you say two? I am a most likely Trump voter. There is a huge difference.
Yes, first of all, I completely agree with that. Yes.
First of all, I didn't mean that in a negative way. Second of all, I didn't mean you, Anthony. That's again, I love you, Anthony.
Oh, he's talking about you people in the comments. I see what you mean.
Who do you mean? Who do you mean you people? I was catchy on that one. No, I come from it is something that I've been seeing a lot is about Jeffrey Epstein and a lot of stuff about the child trafficking, right? I was in Colombia a few years ago. I can't say where or who, but we worked with a group that busted a huge ring of sex trafficking, right? And it wasn't, and we were like, yeah, Colombia. It was very big with Americans. Right, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it. Atlanta is one of the biggest cities with child trafficking, and I used to drive a tour truck. Anthony knows because he drove my truck from Jersey to LA. That's how I first met him. Well, San Fran.
It's a long drive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you, Anthony. But it's something that I am very passionate about. That I don't like to support, and I'm all about it. And a lot of people always, go hard on the left. I'm neither left or right, but they go hard on the left. And about, the Clintons and other things. And they like how Trump is trying to crack down on it. But one thing that got me that I did not like, because Trump is very voice his opinion about women, and voice his opinion. Again, I'm not just automatically dogging him. I'm just saying about people he doesn't like or whatever. Or other people that he doesn't like. He never is like, oh, yeah, okay. He's definitely going to let you know, right? And that's something a lot of people like. But when he comes out and says what he said, and again, I didn't just listen. I heard this on Fox News, right? Because I wanted to make sure I didn't hear a spin. I didn't hear a spin, and I hear when they asked him, and I'm like, this is a setup question, Trump. You could just say, yeah, no, whatever. But he said, I wish her well. She's a good woman, and I just sat there and I go, are you for real?
Did he just say I wish her well, or did he actually say she's a good woman? Either way, it sucks. But did he say she's a good woman?
He said he knew her from, both lived in Palm Beach, and
yeah.
and I'll double check, but I believe I heard him say to something around that effect of, she's, the woman, Palm Beach, and, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just saying, that was something I did, even if, again, he just said, wish her well. I don't wish her negative, but I definitely don't wish her well for what she's done. And I wish she gets justice, because we need to stop that. And that's something that when that happens and I see my president, I mean, of course, people are like, it's not my president. I'm an American. That's my president, whatever. Right. But if I see my president agree with that, or at least not agree with that, but not, throw it under like hard,
that's where my head went when he said that, because I mean, everybody that follows the cabal, like, is he playing a game? I don't know. Which to me, it's like you're playing a game with an election. You're playing like why couldn't you just say no comment, or like I don't have any feelings on that, or you could even say I used to know the woman. But yeah, I don't.
Well, he did, but again, I see you could think of a game, but I'm just saying again, what what it is, at least be. I like how he can be 100% what he's on, but like be 100% up front. Like, yo, that's I don't like it. She hope she gets what she deserves. We
needed to change his tone a little bit. Like,
yeah. Because it was more of a reminiscence. It was more of a reminiscence because, like, yo, Palm Beach County, it's kind of like, hey. But again, that's my embellishing a little bit.
Some people are taking it as sarcasm, and I could see that too, because there's a lot of times, like, after you and I get in an argument, Curtis, when I leave the call, I say,
I don't wish you well. Don't compare me to
Jack
to that woman.
No, I know, but I'm saying maybe it could have been a sarcastic thing.
I'm hoping so. I'm just saying, from what a lot of people who are right, who told me, reached out to me, and they're like, Curtis, I can't believe he said that. And I'm like, all right, well, let's just research it, because I don't like to jump to conclusions. But I'm just posing that out there, what was thought of that, because that was a very big,
It's okay. I just wish her well. Okay, so he said he wishes Ghislaine Maxwell well. She faces recruiting, child recruiting, blah, blah, blah. I just wish her well, frankly.
Okay.
Anyways. All right, get out of here, Curtis, because now it's time to talk about hydroxychloroquine.
Oh, yay.
Oh, I'm out of here. I'm about to go take my drip now. I mean, what? I am not taking that at all, people. That's not a pose. I probably won't take it. I'm wearing my mask. Again, just to reiterate how serious I am, check this out, Misty. Just want you to know I'm right there with you. Midwest.
Oh, yes.
We up in there. We up in there.
I just bought mine, but it's got the full face shield built into it.
Ooh, you see, she hating on me, man. She hating on me. Just wait. She about to do it. I gotta go.
I got it right here. Here.
She's gonna open the box.
Hey, I'm staying hydrated.
So this is
mine.
Wow. I'm waiting on the cartridges.
Oh yeah. Oh no. I my friend has a whole. He's a doctor. He's got a whole air thing. Yeah. Everything now, because he's an ER. He's an ER, so he's got to be safe. So yeah, be safe out there, everybody. Wash your hands, please.
Yes.
Don't be mean to other people. Again, like, we're not perfect. Give some people room to be imperfect, so we can find a way to come together. And I do that for Anthony because, again, he's got a mustache. But outside of that, thank you, Misty. Love you. I'm definitely going to watch more of you. Just met you. Jump back. I love her, bro. Like, she could talk about everything.
I'm glad to have met you all.
You're awesome.
You're more my people. You're my tribe.
She's going to be with, she's going to be on with Cash whenever we can set that up too. Cash is still trying. He's on the phone right now with Spectrum or something.
I know.
Oh, what was the bag of fluid? That's not a bag of fluid, guys. That is a jug of water. We're trying to, I'm on this workout kick. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get right for the winter. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to fight that COVID. Let's go.
We're about to be talking hydroxychloroquine, so I'm going to get hydrated. Let's go. All right, later, Curtis.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, here we go. All right, Misty. I think this is what a lot of people, because they saw me talk last night, and a lot of these people saw me share, and a lot of this group also shared it on their own.
Yes.
The stuff with the hydroxychloroquine. And we started this conversation out today saying that you're almost not fully, but almost happy that it was pulled. So my initial response, and this is how you and I started talking this yesterday, and then I'm going to give you full chance to kind of give your opinion. So I got a friend, and we all have people that have been affected. Not all of us. A lot of us have. And I've had 10 friends that have been very sick at given points. I've had one of those that right now is on a ventilator. A lot of you guys know him, Dr. Frank. Dr. Frank's on a vent. He's on dialysis now. And I look at what happened yesterday when I started watching the unfortunate source of Breitbart, which is a far right leaning documentation. Unfortunately, but I watched these doctors, some of which are a little kooky, some of which are a little far to the side, but it got me thinking on a different level, which is these are doctors, and not on a different level, because I've been thinking this for a while with hydroxychloroquine, and we'll also talk about remdesivir as well. Why are we silencing something that seems to be harmless? And again, it's not censorship because these are privately owned platforms. Missy said that, and I've said that all along when things get pulled from Facebook. But right now, this is our media. And to show your hand like that, to me, bothers me, especially since the more I watch the low-level doctors, the people that we can see on day 1, on day 2, on day 4 of being sick, or give us recommendations, these are the ones that are saying it's working. And I personally decided to search everything that I could to find a doctor that has said that hydroxychloroquine has killed a patient. Have they died from COVID? Still, yes. But has it killed a patient? I can't find it. I can't find the daily, everyday doctor in a world where we're censoring everything. The guy down the street that's coming out and saying, yeah, I used it for 4 weeks with, azithromycin. It doesn't work. I stopped using it. I've yet to see that simple of a video. All I'm seeing is top-level brass in the medical profession and in the government and all across the country that are being put in front of the media, the ones saying it. Now, Missy's got a slightly different opinion, but it's not fully different, and she's going to explain that. It's more of, is it as harmless as we say? But right now, it's all hands on deck, and it's the same people that are more politically on the left-hand side because it's become a Trump thing. It's Trump liked it, so it's bad. Instead of, let's look at this a little bit more because it's showing something called empirical evidence. And a lot of times people say, where's the double blind? Double blinds are very difficult when you own a practice and you're just using something anecdotally, empirically, however you want to call it. And if it's working and you're sharing, all you're doing is sharing your personal results as a day-to-day doctor. And there's many of these videos that are up, down, up, down, up, down, and you can check that they're real doctors. It makes me further push the agenda in my brain of, we're missing something here. And that's where I'm going to end. And it frustrated. And I got hot yesterday. And thankfully I talked to Misty before I went live and just exploded in fury and anger after I watched some of the doctors and after I did some of the research, because there is a slightly different side to it. But it bothers me. I've got a friend that, and there, it's too late in the process for him to actually take hydroxychloroquine, hydroxychloroquine. It's too late for that. It's too late for remdesivir. It's too late for these other things. Why weren't these things that could have been done in the very beginning? We're trying to talk about getting kids back to school. Why aren't we doing everything at our disposal to test things as we go when they're minorly, when the side effects are minor? You can watch anything on television and look at 87 different pharmaceuticals that have oily discharge, and you could die from pulmonary embolisms. So there's all these side effects that are out there. Why is it that we're placing such a horrible emphasis on it? And then deleting all these videos. Donald Trump Jr.'s Twitter account is now suspended. It's a whole bunch. Misty, what's your opinion on hydroxychloroquine?
Oh my God. Like when this drug first came out with this, whole hullabaloo that first happened regarding it, remdesivir was already, there was a doctor, I believe he was in Washington, and he was showing promising results with the remdesivir. I think he treated one of his friends. So these average everyday doctors who are doing these trials, they're out there because he's one of them. he's who started this whole remdesivir thing. So it is possible with the hydroxychloroquine, but what we're not seeing, the studies that they're referencing, these small studies that showed results, there was one from France that had no placebo. And we never got the data from China regarding Wuhan for France to try to replicate, because what we're trying to do is replicate these studies. The Shanghai study showed it didn't make any a difference in recovery. They had determined that they need a larger study to confirm the results. The study in France tried to duplicate the Shanghai study. But and it's just like with the reason it got retracted with the original information is because the gentleman who was making all these claims wouldn't share his data. And just like with a pandemic lady, if we can't replicate what somebody is claiming, then it's not, something that we can peer review. But the most recent study that's been done in Brazil showed no benefit. So to come out and make these claims, it's so frustrating because we don't know the best dose. We don't know how long to even give it. How long?
Right.
That's a good question. How long would you like me to take a drug? I don't know if it's going to work or not. So. And then what was happening, and I was in the drive-through of an individual who takes this drug every day, and a lot of my followers were coming to me because I do these live COVID Q&As. They couldn't even get their medication. They were trying to drive into other states to get it filled from other pharmacies. So what this created was a shortage for people who needed it. So it's very frustrating because there was a retrospective study with the VA that actually showed that the deaths were 28% higher in hydroxychloroquine alone, followed by using it with azithromycin versus not giving it at all was the best choice, and this was people in the over age of 65. So there's, in one group of patients, it might help. But we have to identify those people before and what we're doing right now is slinging this stuff across the board because we are giving this.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you to tell. So people right now, when they see a video like that pulled off the internet, they think that it's not, like, oh my God, we're not using it. But it sounds like we are.
That's not true. We are using it widespread, and we're using it with zinc. We're using it with vitamin C. We're using it with azithromycin. We're using it alone. We're using it without the azithromycin and zinc. I mean, we are trying. These doctors are truly trying out here. And that's what the media isn't talking about. So now here we get this video up and we get the other videos up and then they get taken down and we get these conspiracy theories and hoaxes. Whereas it's because of this, there's no science behind these claims. We can't go around claiming cures and things, and there's no science.
So do you believe that empirical evidence is not science?
There is no empirical evidence really, because like I'm looking at all these studies, small, large, retrospective, and we're just not seeing that statistical value, which is called the p-value, when it comes to these stop points in any of these studies that say, hey, we need to stop the study because we're seeing that this is a benefit and everybody needs to be given it, which is what we've seen with remdesivir. They stopped the study. And in both of these studies, they moved the stop points and changed the criteria because they were seeing patterns and they wanted a better picture. And of course, because they changed that, there's this huge conspiracy about that. Rather than the statistical reason and the science behind it was that it was to include a better population sample, and to see if we really did need to be given this drug sooner,
right,
which is what we've seen with the remdesivir. So with the hydroxychloroquine, we're just not seeing the evidence, whether it be, I'm not seeing it out in the field. I talk to the floor therapist. I talk to the doctors. I ask these questions like, hey, what are you seeing? And we do talk to each other because they're like, hey, you travel. What are you seeing? And we share this information. And I see them trying everything. I'm looking at the drugs and I'm actually writing these patterns down. I'm writing down blood values to see if I notice any trends. And we're just not seeing any drug, not even the remdesivir, to be truthfully honest with you, that is making any significant difference. You know what I mean? It's like
But if it's not, there's a huge difference between not making a difference and being a harm to the public. And we both agreed that the big issue with yesterday's reason why it got pulled down is because the woman said the one key word which was
cure.
It's a cure instead of a treatment. And that became dangerous. And it started talking about kids going back to school. But again, we're in an all hands on deck situation. You guys are using it. Why is it weird? And I'm going to respectfully disagree with the concept of empirical. If there's enough doctors speaking out even against their risk of losing licenses, and yes, some of the doctors on that video were a little kooky. There was a couple respectable doctors as well. The gentleman from Santa Monica has a very well-known practice, whatever. Yep. So there's successful doctors that are saying it and they're using it on their patients. There's a lot of Texas doctors that have been doing it. If it's not harmful, why are they pushing it's a 65-year-old tested treatment that we know the side effects are minimal if you're using something if you're using it as a doctor prescribed. Again, the other fear yesterday is they're talking about having it where you just get it over the counter instead of properly prescribed. So the question then becomes, why is it such a threat that you have to have social media pull it?
Well, honestly, it's the same reason we have warning labels on devices that really probably shouldn't, have them. It's become this, I saw it on the interweb, so it must be true. And we have people doing things like taking the algae killer for the fish tank or trying to inject themselves with ivermectin. When they see something, it's like social media has become this cesspool of misinformation, and we don't know what a lot of the problem is anymore is people don't know where to go to get their education, how to filter out the bias, and just to get to the facts. And we don't have that even in the news anymore. It's like, I miss Dan Rather these days, and Walter Cronkite, because they just would report the news. And now with the invention of the internet and the availability of all this misinformation, people are prone to injuring themselves, and they think that taking more of something. I cannot tell you how many people, when I did home care, when I would sit down to talk to them about what medications they were on, didn't even know why they were taking a medication, what the name was, what the purpose was.
100%.
So in this day and age, people see this stuff and they think, and they see a name that's close to it, and they want to take extra because they think it's going to build up it's the mindset. And it's the reason we have warning labels. You could put a skull and crossbones on something, and it's like Dennis Leary said, people would be lined up around the block just to smoke that pack of cigarettes, because you know what I mean? So it's almost like a risk of being sued by, did you see something on Facebook, 5 years down the road that made you want to take, it's this risk, especially with it being a private platform, that if they don't do what's,
but they selectively take things down.
They do. And I've been censored myself on my PTSD page. I shared a meme that said, the election's canceled, you're stuck with Trump for 4 more years during the quarantine. And I got banned for 30 days for interfering with a census or election. And I'm like, really? God. Yeah. So I do understand. I've been censored and frustrated so many times. I have a stalker that can create 18 different profiles, and they don't find anything that violates their community standards, even with my character on it, But when I share something, it's like, bam. So yeah, they are selectively. I totally agree. And I do not agree with this censorship. At least be transparent about why you're doing it. Give us a way to contest it, to, show that, no, this is actually what we're seeing. Try to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. I mean, I love my president. I do believe he does support our country, but I do believe he needs to stay off of Twitter. I do not need to know how he feels. I honestly, I had to delete him off of Twitter. I just couldn't deal with I'm like, what are you doing? It's like, please stop.
I'm watching somebody backstage right now. So we are not done with this conversation, but we're going to preview breaking the barriers real quick. So, and when you said President Donald Trump, Cash did the salute. So Cash, meet Misty, Misty, meet Cash.
It is such a pleasure. I shared your video like in the very beginning of all this rioting and protesting, and what I had done was I had shared the viewpoints of 5 African American individuals from all different backgrounds, and I wanted to see the reaction that people had given me, and they, you know, no matter if people were for Candace Owens or against her, I'm going to tell you, a strong Black woman, people respond to. But when it came to Black men sharing their perspectives and stuff, nobody gave a damn. And I'm like, listen to this dude.
A lot of people responded very well to mine. Like,
yes,
I don't know if it's because I was saying what everybody wanted to say but couldn't say because they were white or whatever, and then want to get deemed a racist. But either way, it was awesome that it happened, and now we're here. So.
Yes, and that is what is the great thing, is what's happened because of all of it. And that's what I got was, oh, you're a racist. And I'm like, man, I have so many mixed family members. My entire like friends, you know, my whole group is Black. I'm like, you don't even know who you're arguing with.
Right.
I'm sitting here thinking, but the perspective, I've lived in the inner cities. I've seen it, and it's like what you've had to say is correct. You know, we have to support the change in the community and within the Black community, and be the change that everybody's wanting to see happen, because really, until we start to do these changes in our own communities, we're not going to see any changes.
I agree. I think we need to remove the labels, because there's really no such thing as like a Black community. It's always diverse in any area that you go to, any area that you go to where people say it's a Black community and only Black people live there. Not the case. There's white people that live there, Mexican people that live there, Puerto Rican people. It's always diverse everywhere that you go. And the labels are what's killing us. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing. But yeah, I want to jump on real quick. It was very nice to meet you, Miss Misty. I'm sorry that I wasn't on earlier.
It's okay.
My internet is trying to ruin me. That's what happened. I was on the phone with Xfinity for literally like an hour. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
But I got it up and running. As you can see, I'm here live with you guys. I wanted to let everybody know that's watching here. I didn't want to interrupt the show, but we're doing Breaking the Barriers tonight at 7:15 p.m. We're going to be going live, and I have a special guest, someone that is in Portland that was actually there when the mom got shot in the head. He was there. And we're going to get his narrative on everything that happened. So I want all of you guys to tune in. If you can, please tune in, share the video, like the page, the Streetlights Unity page. It will not be on my personal page. I'm sharing it from YouTube, and I'm sharing it from the Streetlights page. So if you haven't liked Streetlights page yet, please do that so you don't miss out on what we're doing. Also, if you haven't already, please go and like BetheChange's page, okay? If you're watching it right now, it's easy. Once you get off this video, click that little thumbs up right there, and that means you like the video, and then share it and tell your friends about us so that they will come and like it and be informed as well, because we're not the fake news media. We just give it raw, baby. Give you the truth from every aspect, and we try to get people that are there, that know what they're talking about, that's seen it firsthand. All right? No agenda except to unite people. Love you guys.
You're getting really good at that, Cash. All right, I'll see you. I got another guy I'm trying to get that has had some issues in Portland too. I'll talk to you about that right when we get off. Missy and I we're gonna go toe to toe for about another 10 more minutes.
Do your thing. I got my money on Misty.
Dang it! Later, Cash.
All right, see you, brother. Bye, Misty. Nice to meet you.
Well, now everybody's going to get dinner real fast. So let's wrap this up. All right. So here's some of my thoughts. The people that you have seen and treated are more end user. They're more worst case scenario. How many doctors have you dealt with or patients have you dealt with in the early stages, which is now after 4 months of treatment actually seeing success? Because I know you're using it on a lot. First off, what percentage are you using it on the patients that you see? Are the people
I would say that I'm like, when I was in Laredo, I seen it on about half the patients there. Up in New Jersey, pretty much everybody who qualified for the studies If they qualified for remdesivir, if they qualified for the plasma, we were hitting them with it. And a lot of these other patients came from the floor and were upgraded to ICU. So they came in a floor status and not ultimately a critical. So then they got worse. And, there's not really any patient who isn't on anything, unless it's like end stage. We've already run through everything. They've been there 2 months, and all we can really do is supportive care.
So you've seen a lot of people have it. So then the question becomes, you're still seeing people that are already at the hospital stage. And that is a different level of case. And it does start sometimes from, I went to my local doctor, he just said, take care of yourself, which is kind of what happened to Frank, Dr. Frank. 7 days later, he went from 1 day feeling fine, after having it for 7 days, next day in the hospital on a vent.
Yep.
So what's your experience? And again, because we're talking about the empirical evidence that these low-level doctors, and I don't want to say low-level, but your neighborhood doctors are seeing, which is incredibly high.
The thing is, I'm not seeing these doctors really talking about it. Henry Ford in the Detroit area, they had shown some possibility, and like everybody jumped all over it. But there was, even Henry Ford had pointed out, there was a bunch of data that would skew all of this. And, we have to know what medications is this patient on prior to that could affect the outcome. Can we attribute a patient's success? Yeah, it's a great observation, but until we know all these other things that are going on in the background, we can't attribute it to, it's just a subjective observation. There's no lab values. There's no anything to go along with, to support that. It's just a doctor's observations, which we can give the same message, and two doctors can look at the same patient and come up with a different observation. So what one doctor might say for that same patient, another doctor might go, but no, X, Y, and Z. So we have to be able to look at those things and peer review it. And that's why we have to do it, because what one person's opinion isn't going to be the opinion of a next doctor. That's why we have first and second opinions. It's an observation in the field. And a lot of times when we make those observations in the field and we get them into the lab to do testing, we find that we are wrong, which is where we have hypothesis and the scientific method. But we're not seeing that. They're taking these observations in, but what they're trying to do to replicate these observations, we're not seeing. And a lot of these patients...
We are, though. We're seeing them talk and speak in front of the internet. Like, they're going out because they can't... They're part of a peer-reviewed article in a peer-reviewed journal.
Those Bakersfield doctors, the ones that were out in California talking about herd immunity, that was one of the doctors who was sitting in, or standing on camera. Those are two urgent care doctors who are owned in a private practice. So there's their bias already. They're not treating COVID patients there. They're not. They are treating the common cold and the aches and sprains and pains. You don't get treated for COVID at your urgent care clinic.
That's actually not true, because some people don't have a primary care physician and they go to urgent care. They do, I personally don't go to a doctor very often at all, because I don't have to. But when I do have something going on regular health wise, I'm going to go to an urgent care, and that's going to be my quote unquote.
But these doctors were talking about herd immunity in the very beginning, when we didn't even, and they're talking about the infection rates of a certain particular small area and trying to extrapolate that into the entire United States. And as we know with COVID, what happens in one area is not necessarily what's going to happen in another. And that's why that Spain study that just came out that looked at those many thousands of people and found that the prevalence of COVID in that entire country was 5%. So it shot the whole herd immunity thing right in the foot.
But we're not talking about herd immunity right now.
No, but that's one of the doctors, and that's where we're talking about credibility.
But Misty,
it lends to credibility.
But what did we talk about earlier when it comes to this disease? We are constantly learning new things as we go, and we're moving with the science. So, for example, Carrie just said, If a doctor has given it to 350 patients and they're early level and they've had no deaths or hospitalizations, it has to mean something.
But like I said, with the inhaled corticosteroids, with the asthmatic and COPDers, we don't know if the reason that they haven't been affected so hard is if it's the fact that they're taking that inhaled corticosteroid prior to getting sick, because if it is, it's providing a level of protection. It's not doing that during the treatment of COVID, but it's being associated with that erroneously because of data that people don't understand what they're looking at. What I would like to know is this empirical evidence that you're referring to, where is it? What are we referring to besides this doctor's?
But the definition of empirical is observation based. And I mean, that's literally it. And and it's not just those doctors. There's a lot of doctors coming out. So then the question, and I get your point, because there's a million doctors in the United States. Why are we only hearing it from a couple? We've talked about there's risk in certain different circles on losing licenses. But then I go, let me find the other side of the argument. So I look at the other side of the argument and I go, I type in, and it should be easy because the media wants to back it. So I say, what people have died from taking hydroxychloroquine. I look on Facebook. I look on Google. The stories are strictly bringing up stories. It only brings up the lack of efficacy in some trials. There's one story of a 17-year-old girl that took hydroxychloroquine, and it became a big deal because it was a 17-year-old girl. They make the headline out of it. She died, and her parents were feeding her hydroxychloroquine, not from a doctor, they heard it was good and they gave it. She had multiple comorbidities. She had a ton of sickness, and they tried a last resort to give her hydroxychloroquine. And these parents, they were obviously not, I'm not going to say anything. They probably should have tried to get a medical professional involved. And that became the only story that I could find of somebody that died while we're testing in this COVID world, when we're testing people with hydroxychloroquine. How can I not find that? And how can I not find, and I Google other things to try to find videos that should be prevalent of doctors on a weekly basis saying, I'm giving it to my patients, it's not working. And I'm not talking about your level. I'm talking the people at their day-to-day doctor's offices. Why is it in a world that we're clearly trying to shut down the other voice, are we not providing that voice? Because I can't find it.
There's a lot of things you can't find. But, it's not just the heart condition that really needs to be concerned about when we're talking about hydroxychloroquine. It can also increase liver enzymes. And down here in the El Paso area, drinking is a huge problem. So is liver cirrhosis. The last thing I want with a patient, is self-medicating or taking these things, and increasing their liver enzymes. Because a lot of people, they will go over to Mexico to obtain these things. So they go over there and they obtain like the ivermectin and all these other things. And then they come back here and we wind up treating them in our hospital. I cannot give you a reason why we don't have multiple doctors pouring out going, I've given this to my patients, but other ones are going to say,
not multiple, any. I can't find a single one. I can find the top brand.
So you're referring to empirical evidence. Okay. In medicine, we practice evidence-based medicine.
Correct.
So if we don't have scientific evidence to prove that this is a good idea, you're going to have to answer to a licensing board as to why you're prescribing off-label a medication in mass quantity to individuals. And if they decide, later on down the line, well, my doctor gave this to me to help prevent COVID. And then we find later on down the line that there is evidence that, it is harmful, or there is this side effect down the line, or our dosing was entirely wrong. And now you have these health problems. It brings back a malpractice suit.
I get it, but at least they're still alive.
But we're not practicing observational, medicine. We are practicing evidence-based medicine. We practice observational things. It's just like the 253 scientists that signed a letter and sent it to the WHO about this actually being transmitted airborne. So there are people out there going, hey, you're wrong, and we're willing to stand together in 253, not 6, with questionable, and you always have to look for credibility here.
But
if you gave me credible doctors who weren't, referencing Dr. Oz as their source, or things like that, or giving me data that I can work with.
So the data becomes this. The data becomes the data that you speak of is 65 years of using it with minimal side effects. And as I said earlier, we have drugs out that have warning labels, etc. And there is plenty of people, I'm sure, that would be seeing their friends and loved ones die in mass numbers that would be willing to go, let's take the risk for a future of some issue, because guess what? We'd rather have a future. And there's also with the azithromycin, it's the part of the reason you take it in combination, as you've told me and as I know, is to counterbalance some of the inflammation and counterbalance some of the infection. So as Lori just said, so our actual evidence, like the medical evidence that you're looking for, is 65 years of it being for the most part harmless, and then an actual evidence an actual evidence-based research in 2005 when chloroquine was used to treat SARS, and they saw the efficacy then directly from that research. And then all of a sudden we're here today where we have to use empirical. Everything that you're doing in the hospital, when we started with the vents were technically based off of what they thought would work. And unfortunately, the first month of people that were taking vents getting killed at a higher number than they should have been, that's empirical. We have to go, and that was untested. Right now, we've got something that is technically 65 years of, for the most part, safe, that we're not using. Or we're not supporting, I should say, because it sounds like we are using.
It's not that we're not supporting it. There are clinical trials out there. That's how these people in the hospitals are even getting it. So right. it's not that it's not supported. It's that the overwhelming evidence is not there, and they're giving it to people before they, even get to the hospital. As soon as they test positive, they're starting to give it to them. They have different groups of people and different classes. And I
haven't heard that.
Across the board, this is not happening. I'm going to have to share. I have so many websites that I follow,
I want you, and I do want you to share with
the doctor on MedCram is great, because everything that he shares, all the studies are there, the links that go all the way back. But we're not seeing this. There's all these different clinical trials for the vaccine, and they're doing different approaches with the vaccine, because what we're seeing with the vaccine is it might provide immunity to you, but it doesn't protect other people. So there's all these other things going on, but it's not that we're not using this medication, and that we're not, it's just that the FDA, they want you to use it in the hospital setting because of the heart problems. And they have seen cardiomyopathy in these patients taking the hydroxychloroquine during COVID.
And you even said that doctors, and you even said doctors are using it at your level, which is at the more state level, and it's government funded hospitals and big whatever it is. It's actually not easy for the everyday doctor to be getting this in some states, and they've had trouble prescribing it. And there's been pharmacies that have not allowed, that have actually checked. Mm-hmm. So if we're still at the testing phase, there's a huge issue in my opinion, to not allowing this continued testing to go on something that seems harmless.
But we are continuing the testing.
You are. You're the hospital level. I'm talking about, it's difficult for doctors to prescribe it off label, which is what they do on drugs all the time. Why is it this and here's my little twist, very inexpensive drug that goes against every bit of financial backing that big pharma and heavy medical is going for?
But if we are prescribing a medication that we don't have any evidence other than somebody's observation, which is disputable because two people can look at the same thing and see something completely different. These medications are being studied in the population that isn't in the hospital, and they're doing stop points, and we are not seeing in any group a statistical marker that says, hey, over here, the only drug that has shown this is remdesivir. I mean, there are tons of trials I've got a notebook full of all the drugs that are in trial.
I'm going to ask a dumb question about
seeing.
Remdesivir. How much does Remdesivir cost?
It's not cheap. I believe the course is like $1,400 because it is an HIV antiviral medication.
Mm-hmm.
It's not cheap, but it is the only one. I mean, the only one that was in that made it to a randomized controlled trial because it reached the stop points that we needed was Remdesivir. Hydroxychloroquine, we were not seeing those numbers in any of these studies. France, Shanghai, the VA study.
Have you seen the Yale one that Newsweek published a little bit ago? I'll just skim it.
Yeah, go ahead and summarize it.
So, a professor of epidemiology at Yale School of Public Health, which I find funny because somebody else posted this and then I looked at it and people slammed it with like super alt paper like groups saying like this guy's an idiot. And I'm like, well, that's you can't take a mediocre study and then take a gigantic pile of poop and make that your anti-proof. But anyways, so professors of epidemiology at Yale School of Public Health authored 300 peer-reviewed publications. Gentleman's name is Harvey Risch. He's talking about hydroxychloroquine. On May 27th, he published an article in the American Journal of Epidemiology entitled Early Outpatient Treatment of Symptomatic High-Risk COVID-19 Patients. It should be ramped up immediately as key to the pandemic crisis. He went on to continue to show some of the evidence that he'd seen since his publication on May 27th article. 7 more studies have been demonstrating similar benefits in a lengthy follow-up letter, also published by AJE. I discussed 7 studies and renew them for the hydroxychloroquine in high-risk patients. It includes 400 high-risk patients treated by Dr. Vladimir Zelenko, 0 deaths. 4 studies totaling 500 high-risk patients treating in nursing homes and clinics throughout the U.S., no deaths. Controlled trial, 700 risk patients, and you're talking about the Brazil one. It did not have what you discussed before. It didn't have the placebo. Significantly, again, it was just one-sided, but it did treat with significantly reduced risk of hospitalization, 2 deaths among 334 patients treated with hydroxychloroquine. So 2 deaths. And the other study of the 398 matched the same patients in France with reduced hospitalization risk. And then he said that other doctors have reported very successful empirical evidence as well. And then you look at the different countries. He talks about the countries that have seen success. Switzerland, and at a certain point, the government banned and this is where you look at observations. If the math adds up, the math adds up. May 27th, Swiss national government banned outpatient use of hydroxychloroquine for COVID-19. Around June 10th, deaths increased 4-fold and remained elevated. On June 11th, the Swiss government revoked the ban, and on June 23rd, 2 weeks, the death rate reverted to what it had been beforehand. People who die from symptoms, etc. You can do the math there. Why is hydroxychloroquine being disregarded? It's become political. Plain and simple. He kind of goes on to say that. But the drug has not been used properly in many studies that give it negative side effects, which you've talked about yourself in terms of the amount that is actually being used. It's up for debate. You're trying to figure out. You're learning as you go. And that's just saying that the success rate isn't good. It's not people getting hurt. So again, it shows major success when used early in high-risk people. But again, let's see, significant benefit in large hospital studies in Michigan and New York City, it says, within the first 24 to 48 hours after admission. So when it's done quickly, they're seeing basic evidence that it does not have statistics just yet. So that's what I got out of this article, and it talked about some of the other countries as well.
In regards to the Henry Ford Health System, one in Detroit, they published a retrospective study, and there's a problem with retrospective studies right there. They said after they had published their data, however, while several right-wing media figures celebrated the data, a review in the same journal pointed to numerous confounding factors that called the purported benefits of the hydroxychloroquine into question. So, but on the opposite end of the spectrum there.
All that is saying is it called into question. And I'm not saying that it's perfect. I'm saying why the fact that we are shutting down an inexpensive, we just scrubbed 100 million people watching it from the internet. There was 24 million. Then you had, Donald Trump Jr. shared it and all this stuff. To me personally, you can't look at this and go, holy nuggets. This has got a lot to, it seems the metrics, it's got a lot to do with money. And you bring up points of when it says that the efficacy isn't great. There's where's this one other one? And this is when the news definitely took your side on it. And I want to share this one really quick. It's a quick video. Let's hope it works. I always like to say that before I do.
I know this.
This one is, and notice by the way, I want you to notice it says former U.S. Surgeon General, no one should take hydroxychloroquine unless doctor prescribes it. This is a 6-minute video where it's talked about in the first minute, and that's it. But anyways, let's go ahead and let's see if tell me if there's no volume when I hit play. Or anything for that matter.
I don't hear anything.
Is it moving? Move
No.
for me. Come on. You could do it. Hold on. Let me give this another shot. Oh, there we go.
To start with
go.
Sometimes there are so many controversies in any given week that by the time we get to Sunday, we have trouble sorting through which ones are most top of mind. And we have to kind of dig in to make sure that we don't forget about some of the critical things that we've learned in a given week. And one of the things that I want to make sure we don't lose sight of is hydroxychloroquine and the president's continued insistence on pushing it as something that, he said he himself is taking, but that we've also, learned more about in the course of the week as we have gotten more information about the fact that it does in fact seem to lead to actually worse outcomes according to some of the data that we finally have. Can you just walk us through where we stand on that right now?
Yes, of course. And good evening. Nice to see you again, Casey. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you. Hydroxychloroquine, as you know, is an anti-malarial drug that has been used for a long time. And what I would recommend really is that nobody take that drug unless their physician specifically prescribes it for them. This is a drug that does require a prescription. There are certain hazards as with any drug, but the evidence thus far indicates that it is not successful in its use as a drug to deal with COVID-19.
I'm glad that we sort of are underscoring that again, because that with the messaging sometimes coming out of the White House, I think it's important for people to make sure that they get the actual facts from professionals, and we've heard less and less from doctors Birx and Fauci as this has gone on. Let's talk about the phase that we're entering in now, and I know you do a lot of work with.
That was it. Like, she was expecting so much more. She almost had to force words down his mouth. He just said, we're not really showing that it's working, and technically just make sure your doctor is the one prescribing it. And this is the evidence that they're pushing to try to tell people how bad it is. And it smells so fishy to me.
It's because honestly, you should never promote taking a medication without first consulting your doctor, which I think is the first warning label on any medication ad that we see on television. But we see all these rosy pictures. It's just like with this inhaled corticosteroid. I don't know what the hell is with these Texas doctors and these off the wall claims lately, but with the budesonide, that's a daily medication that we give almost every asthmatic patient in the damn hospital. But there are side effects to that. Now, they're not common, but I think that cataracts and thrush mouth and other problems are not desirable. But we have to be careful promoting any medication. And what we see, like when I follow Z-Dog, is he has to be careful because as soon as you try, especially as a doctor, as soon as you give like any kind of medical advice or anything, you're almost entering into a doctor-patient relationship. So you have to be careful there. If you're asked a question and you answer it in a way that it could be construed as medical advice, lawsuit. So a lot of it is a CYA thing anymore, because recommending anything without first consulting your own primary care doctor is against everything we know in medicine.
Right.
Because they're the ones who are going to be looking at your chart and seeing if you're on any medications. It's just like when this all first happened, everybody flipped out and said, don't take Advil and don't take anything like that because it can make it worse. Well, the WHO and France, who made those statements, retracted them, but you didn't hear about those retractions. All you got stuck with in the head was, don't take Motrin. And it's only in a very, very few small amount of cardiac patients that really shouldn't take it.
Right.
And a few other situations. But that small amount of people, it's just like, oh, the virus only kills 1% of people who get it. Well, when you start looking at numbers and you start multiplying those risks with all the people who you want to give this to, bodies start adding up. Those risks begin to get higher. So to just run out and say, take it or take anything, it's great, it'll help fix it. It's not the answer. I mean, if we're seeing, and these doctors are seeing, hey, submit something to the FDA as a study and do it, so we can do a trial if that's what they're wanting. Nobody's done that. If, shut up and be the change. If you're seeing these changes, do it the right way. Don't do it in a way that says, oh, I'm seeing this in a clinic, and in order to get internet celebrity and drive up business to my clinic because now I'm famous on the internet and I'm going to get more business because it's slow during COVID and I'm not getting the business that I'm wanting, and I need to drive in traffic. Let's do it this way, and let's become famous for doing a study with these 6 doctors that are on your screen and setting it up. If a guy doing remdesivir out in Washington can do it, treating his friends, so can Tom, Dick, and Harry.
It creates a dangerous rabbit hole, and I get that, but I do completely understand that.
They should be doing a study that says, okay, if this is the case, let's do it this way.
What do studies take, Missy?
It takes,
It takes
sometimes
money. And if the big money is in one direction.
Sometimes it does, but wouldn't the manufacturers of hydroxychloroquine and all these other places?
Oh, hydroxychloroquine, they have a ton of it. Go to their website. It's
then
huge.
They should be backing these kind of studies. They should have.
They are backing
funding.
them, but then people go, no, you can't. Those are funded by the company that makes it. Trust me, I went down the rabbit hole last night. There is a ton of these hydroxychloroquine studies done by the manufacturers that everybody's discrediting because they think that they're in it for the money. So
there's always some place that's going to have a source of funding because these trials aren't done free, just like drug trials. When they're doing an investigational drug, none of this is free. And all that investigational drug money, that's all for research and whatnot. But there are other ways of going about getting funding for trials, and these doctors know this. They know
but we don't have time right now. Right now we're trying to do this instantly.
We had time to do this for remdesivir, which came about the same time as hydroxychloroquine.
Well, there's
how come we've gotten this far with remdesivir but not with hydroxychloroquine if we're making the same argument for both drugs?
Because remdesivir has $1,500 per treatment and the backing behind it.
But if we're going to do that with hospitalized patients because we have to monitor kidney function and we're trying to give all these other COVID positive patients outside of the hospital, isn't that money going to kind of figure out to be the same in the long run?
No, not at all. I mean,
how many patients you're trying to give? Almost every patient prophylactically hydroxychloroquine. We're only giving a certain type of patient remdesivir. So if you multiply all these, COVID positive cases that we're getting, and you're wanting to give them hydroxychloroquine right off the bat,
you could do 100. You could do 100 treatments of hydroxychloroquine.
We're talking about way more than 100 people. Look at the number of positive cases that we keep having every single day.
Right. But it's 100. That's a lot.
We have
you're also
thousands of people.
But you got to think of markup. I'm saying 100 for one treatment, so 100.
Yeah, for one.
And I'm not necessarily saying as a prophylactic too. I want.
But how much? Here's the thing: for a course of remdesivir, we're looking at 4 or 5 treatment total. If we're looking at $100 a treatment for hydroxychloroquine, but for a longer amount of weeks, the cost is the same.
I got you. I mean, I get what you're saying. I just think that, and I think there's ins and outs that you're still treating on a different level. One is a starting process. One is an end process. One could make remdesivir not needed.
And this is not just our country that is studying this drug. I mean, you have the whole world.
And the rest, and what is the rest of the rest of the world is using it a little bit earlier than we are. And what are we talking about? How crappy we are right now in terms of how many people we have with COVID, because we're not doing the initial treatments as much as other parts of the world, and they're doing the testing, and we are now in last place. What's
but there's
different?
Also same thing about a lot of those countries. Some of them have the tuberculosis vaccine mandated at birth. So we're seeing in a lot of these countries who get the BCG vaccine, we're not even seeing the level of outbreak that we're seeing in these other countries that don't require it. So,
I think we're about to lose most of our audience because
I know the feeling.
I know. No, it's not because people are enjoying this. I'm enjoying this conversation, but I know Cash is jumping on the other one. So I want to give you a chance. First off, I want to thank you so much. And people that just jumped on, you saw us going toe to toe, and she's brilliant. We had so much fun talking earlier and having a very similar point. And I want to say before you say goodbye, Misty, this is the whole point of the show. Is we agreed on something earlier and disagreed on something later, and we had civil and good conversations.
That's the best part about all of it. And I keep telling my followers the same thing. There's a way to have civil conversation and respectfully disagree.
So go ahead and say, I think your kid's going to drag you off anyway.
He's like, I'm going to the pool.
say goodbye to everybody. Thank you, Misty.
Thank you, guys. I look forward to talking to y'all again.
Misty, what was the what was the hospital you worked at again, or where?
I work out of El Paso. I'm a traveler, so I don't stay with any one hospital. I go where COVID calls. But before I left my full-time job, I was at University Medical Center, which is the only level 1 trauma center in the Southwest region here. So we're not a small hospital, but that's where I'm at over here in far West Texas.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you are a registered respiratory therapist.
Correct.
Thank you for your time. I'm going to go jump to Breaking the Barriers. I know you guys all want to check that out.
In.
All right. There you go.
Thank you.
All right. Take it easy. Thank you. And everybody else, I'm going to say goodbye to her. I will see you over at Breaking the Barriers. Again, remember to have civil conversations. Some of this, this was for the purposes of having those discussions with people that are wondering why you're supporting something that was from Breitbart and being pulled off the internet. So at the end of the day, we didn't get to talk about a lot of stuff because that was a really engaging conversation about COVID, about hydroxychloroquine, and about the Portland riots and protests. So more to be had over at Breaking the Barriers on Streetlights Unity Movement page. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. Remember, be the change you wish to see in the world. Be a streetlight. Change the people around you and light up the world that's dark right now with a little bit of brightness. Thank you guys so much for watching. Truth will set you free here on the Be the Change Network.